Are a lot of people short Corcept? Wow. Woo. Vaxcyte cut in half. Yeah, some people are complaining about the Corcept data. I would say that if you know, starting with the mechanism, and I guess I was told that another phase 3 trial for the drug did fail in cancer, which is not totally unusual, but it does make you wonder. Between those two things, you do have to maybe require a little bit more evidence than normal. But having said that, I agree that the data itself are pretty clean. You know, I certainly don't have any reason to doubt the data. Ovarian's actually quite difficult to show any response in, so that's pretty solid data. All right, let's look at all the stocks. NVIDIA's traded the most with 10 million shares, then Tesla, then Palantir with 4 million shares. All the stocks are down between 3 and 7%. Market's down a lot today. Bank of America, Plug Power, Rigetti traded the third most or sixth most, down 5%. Amcor, Alphabet, Neo, Robinhood down 6%. D-Wave down 6%. Corcept up 80% on ovarian cancer data for their glucocorticoid antagonist. Surprising data. Trading 1.5 million shares. Supermicro, 1.5 million shares. Marathon Digital and HUT as well, all down a little bit. Corcept the only, HUT 8 is up 8%. News on including that the Trumps are starting a Bitcoin business possibly. Big Bear AI down 6%. Lucid, Intel also down. Moderna down 12% on RFK firing Peter Marks, who's a senior FDA leader. SoFi, Recursion, IonQ down 6%. Amazon, SoundHound, and Lifetime Trading Group all on the most traded list here at 9:15. Gainers include something called UTime, which I don't know if that's a real print or not, but Corcept, number one, Mr. Cooper being acquired, up 24%. Atlanticus Holdings, TechTarget, Axos, IDEA, Biosciences, QVC, Bluebird, which is also being acquired in a take under. HUT 8, F&G Annuities, Accelerate Energy, Fortrea, Cricket, ASA Gold, Maze Therapeutics up 6%, Central Puerto, and EFT, American States Water, AZZ Inc., my favorite company, Maycom Technology Solutions, MRC Global, Village Supermarket, Centerra Gold, and Celdex up 5%-ish. Not a whole lot going on the up list, but on the down list, we got a lot of action. Vaxcyte, the vaccine maker for pneumococcal disease, down 47% on bad data. Berkshire Hills Bancorp down 19%, CI&T, Chesapeake Utilities, Moderna down 12%, as I mentioned earlier, as is Novavax. Fox, Unicure, Stevanato, which is the vial maker for these vaccines. Amarant Bancorp, Unity Group, Innodata, Root, Celestica, Bancolumbia, Perimeter Solutions, Cerebell, Avid Exchange, Planet Labs, Palantir, Cosan, Oklo, LZ Technology, Redfin, and Innodata, all down 7 to 10%. 22 out of 24 serotypes, and 20 out of 24 for the highest dose. So no coverage on some key serotypes there. 19 out of 24 serotypes. Yikes. So they have a third generation vaccine at some point, be further developed. But yeah, this the pneumococcal vaccine wars. I don't think it's related to Peter Marks. Pneumococcal vaccines will be around for a long time. They've been around for 30 years now. They will be around for another 30 years. So I'm not sure anything will change there. Yeah, this will be an exciting week. Shorts are weak. Yeah, the anti-vax narrative is kind of good for IVVD. More people will get sick. I don't know if that's something to celebrate, but yeah, I would think infants are quite a lot, because it's compulsory. Most adults don't get vaccinated for pneumococcal, although they should. I think that the guidance for that is more wishy-washy than infants, which is like mandatory. We're not gonna, we should rebalance. We should rebalance the Bag 7 today. Yeah, we'll rebalance at the close. S&P down 1% today. NVIDIA down 4%. Amazon down 2%. Comcast up. IMS down 5%. Robinhood down 6%. Tesla down 6%. Square, AT&T, and Verizon up. See how Corcept trades today. Ovarian cancer market, fairly substantial here, but 10 billion market cap, implying at least $1 billion in revenue. Yeah, Braden, definitely. A little more updates on that soon. Yeah, CoreWeave's trading below deal price. The market dropping today is a good excuse for Morgan Stanley to not defend the share price. Yeah, we'll try some US stocks. No, I don't think we're shorting Corcept. No explicit reason to do so. We could look at their news and sort of see what. I think the interesting thing to me is, has anybody else tried the glucocorticoid antagonism in cancer? If so, what do those results look like? Did a phase 2 with pretty similar results. So kind of tells you that the phase, you can sort of count on the phase 3 results. I don't know, would you pay $10 billion though? Yeah, we can look at Caterpillar. Aren't too many GR antagonists in cancer. You know, they're kind of the GR antagonist company. Corcept down to 94 after hitting 100. Markets open, quantum recovering a bit. Coin 82K, barely above $10, and Farcoin at 40 cents. So all the stuff that's momentum is for sale. Corcept trading down even further, down to $90 after touching 100. Humacyte $1.89. Only one Caterpillar on this stream. Legendary American company. There will probably be news on the DARPA Quantum Initiative awards. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be 𝗫𝗐 week. D-Wave is probably not going to be getting an award because they're not actually a quantum computer company. They're an annealer. So it's very unlikely that DARPA will fund them. But you know, and obviously QUBT won't get one either. But, you know, maybe IonQ or Rigetti will get one, although I doubt it. You know, the one thing about the DARPA initiative is it's unlikely that IBM or Google will be applying, but we don't know. At CoreWeave, trading lower, big debt burden on that company, a lot of headwinds in the GPU hosting space. Corcept back up, almost to 100 again. Vaxcyte, real ugly day for Vaxcyte. Shares almost getting cut in half here, or a little more than half. Yeah, a lot of people wanted to short CoreWeave on the IPO. Corcept, you know, I have no reason to short it. I mean, if standard of care and ovarian should be able to do $2 billion. And again, given the phase 2 succeeded, there's no reason to really explicitly doubt the phase 3. So I'd imagine they'd get approval and uptake, you know, so the could actually be long potentially. D-Wave doing their user meeting today and tomorrow. Texas company, $200 a share, 477 million shares, making it a $108 billion company. We've gotten pretty far down in the market cap list, although Caterpillar has had a rough, looks like, pretty rough period here as a cyclical stock, dropping quite a bit from when we ran this screen. It was 400, now it's 300, so I think I put the wrong price in. Okay, there we go, 155 billion market cap. I don't know why we saw a different price here. 325. Okay, so 155 billion market cap. Sailor, yeah, having a hard time. The average price that he has on Bitcoin is, he's almost in the red. A couple of down days and he'd be in the red. All right, so construction equipment. We've got asphalt pavers, backhoe loaders, cold planers, don't know what that is, compactors, compact track loaders, forestry machines, forest tree machines, material handlers, motor graders, pipe layers, road reclaimers, skid steer loaders, telehandlers, track type loaders, track excavators, wheel excavators, and wheel loaders. I don't know what these things are. Only one I know is bulldozer, which that's construction. Then they've got a whole bunch for the resources industry. Electric rope shovels, drag lines, hydraulic shovels, rotary drills, hard rock vehicles, large track type tractors, large mining trucks, large wheel loaders, off-highway trucks, wide body trucks, articulated trucks, wheel tractor scrapers, wheel dozers, fleet management, I'm guessing that's software, landfill compactors, soil compactors, machinery components, autonomous ready vehicles and solutions, select work tools, and safety services and mining solutions. Okay, that's kind of the gist. Looking at Caterpillar stock. S&P down 130 basis points, worsening here a little bit. Corcept reaching kind of highs of the day. Rough day for biopharma too. Capricorn down below 10 now. Palantir below 80 if you wanted that on your shopping list. Palantir Caterpillar deal. I'd like that. CEO of Caterpillar is named 𝗕𝗎𝗪𝗏 III. Okay, so I see the revenue here breakdown is looks like half of the company, a little less than half is construction, a little less than half is energy and transportation, and the rest, like 20% or so, is resource industries, so mining. I guess in energy and transportation, there's oil and gas, power generation, industrial. They have even further breakdowns. Resources. SPY down 140 bips now. I don't understand what that means. How much of your short portfolio should you typically hold in cash? Okay, so last 3 years for Caterpillar. Definitely some growth there. But, you know, it's kind of like the definition of a cyclical company. It is like the most cyclical company. So Caterpillar revenue and earnings in a recession maybe would suffer, but keep in mind that that doesn't mean the stock would suffer. If that's priced in, that's priced in. No, they're pretty globally diversified, but you know, let's get to the numbers and see. So what kind of margins do these guys have on these gigantic machines? This is again more of a smokestack company where you want to analyze PP&E and things like that. Pretty much all the biopharma stocks are down on the Peter Marks news that he's been sort of fired by RFK. A lot of senior leadership apparently at FDA has left in protest, but I don't know if I fully believe that. That's the rumor. So will any drugs get approved? Will any medicine make it to new medicine make it to FDA approval? And you know, I don't think RFK is going to block cancer drugs and things like that. And I also think that, you know, drug CEOs have access to the Trump administration, and stopping FDA approvals would be very, very bizarre. Big fan of the FDA over here. So well, there's not too many non-opioid painkillers being developed. Yeah, I think I think everybody knew the day was coming when there'd be, I don't know why you'd call it revenge, but I guess revenge against the bureaucrats, you know, who I think are just trying to do their best, and they're not even bureaucrats. But I will say, take a look at the 𝗎𝗎 medical review, where the medical reviewer for the FDA has said, we don't want 𝗎𝗎 FDA approved, and the FDA approved it anyway, most likely due to some strange, you know, dynamic. So pharma down across the board. Capricorn down 17%, Palantir down 7%, SPY down 150 bips now. Things are worsening quickly. Some of our favorites like ADMA down 10%, Vaxcyte down 54% on some bad news there. Some stocks not reacting, Anavex, SLS, Jazz is flat, but plenty of other stocks down a ton. Biohaven, CRSP. Basically can't stop going down. It's CRISPR Therapeutics. Never liked CRISPR Therapeutics myself. Rocket down 15%. My old company Travere down 11%. Sarepta down. BioNTech, of course, down with Moderna. Only a couple of pharma stocks up. Bristol Myers, J&J, and Amgen. The companies that have drugs for sale don't have a problem here, but I'm sure they want FDA to work too. So yeah, I think, we've been bearish on this channel, as you guys know. Doesn't mean there aren't going to be stocks that go up. Doesn't mean that there aren't going to be stocks that outperform the stocks that go down. But it's a rough time right now. It's we've had a debt-fueled expansion for a long time, and we can do the irresponsible thing and kick the can down the road and fuel more debt, and just keep selling more paper, which we are doing anyway. But somebody has to take a hard look at what we're doing with the government. I think we'll be bullish when stocks are cheap. I think you can't have no growth stocks trading at 40 times sales, 40 times earnings. That's high yield prices. That doesn't make sense. If you can buy a bond for the same price, why wouldn't be senior in the cap table? Why wouldn't you? So yeah, I think the surprise FDA situation, I think there was an expectation that RFK would serve as sort of just a figurehead. And, by him getting involved deeply into matters directly, I think there's some concern there that, I think that's the hope, that was that he'd be just a figurehead, just whining and dining, hanging out around DC and just sitting out his 4 years, just doing nothing. But, if he's going to actively be guiding policy, I think that's pretty dangerous. So we got a lot of things happening, right? You have tech under siege via overinvestment and high valuations. You have biopharma under siege. It's not a small part of the S&P through potential regulatory actions or inaction. You've got sort of global industrial and manufacturing sector potentially under siege through tariffs. And you've got sort of deleveraging or, sort of fiscal spending unwind in addition to deleveraging kind of happening. So both fiscal and monetary kind of working against you. So yeah, a lot of reasons to be bearish, but we'll see. All right, so about 160 billion enterprise value. I'm not including the financial products debt. 10 billion in free cash flow last year. Again, 160 billion enterprise value, so 16 times free cash flow. Now the problem is, if that's a cyclical peak, that's kind of expensive. But it's one of the few mega caps we looked at that at 150 billion, it's actually not even a mega cap, just a large cap maybe. Possibly at reasonably valued, but hard to expect cyclical machinery growth in this kind of environment. Would think that we're at a peak there. Market recovering a little bit. S&P only down 115 bips now. Corcept also still retaining a high price at 97. What else is going on? Yeah, some recovery in our quantum shorts. D-Wave barely down at this point, but have no fear. That'll continue to drop, I'm sure. Crazy QUBT, is just a menagerie of shorting. Kind of shorts all bumping into each other on the way down. Or on the way up too. Yeah, there's just a lot of shorts in QUBT. It's basically a worthless company. But remember, who is allowed to short sell? Who has the money to short sell? It's largely hedge funds, and hedge funds have gotten to a position where hedge funds can barely take any risk. At the pods that control a lot of the equity market, those pods may have been short QUBT, and they're basically being asked to delever. So you might have a lot of short covering in QUBT and other stocks like it, because there's just a lot of folks that are short and they can't hang in due to different dynamics. I mean, maybe sometimes the rest of their portfolio, it could be firm is having a rough year. So crowded shorts are going to kind of outperform because the crowded shorts will have to sort of, get rebalanced. And you don't want to be short, a crowded short in general, usually. But sometimes they're good shorts. So you just sort of have to ride it out. But I think that's what's kind of going on in a few stocks, more than a few stocks, actually. So it does look like the cyclical peak earnings. So when companies that have business cycles, which is sort of a old school term, some of you guys have never even seen a business cycle, which is hilarious. We used to say that in 2000. In 2000, we used to say, oh, you kids have never seen a bear market. And oftentimes it was true. Like Caterpillar is called cyclical. What does that mean? It's pretty simple. Their earnings kind of look like this. And what's interesting is break even can be here, which means that they actually lose money in some years. But overall, hopefully they have positive net earnings. So what you try to do is you average an entire cycle. You say, okay, what's the PE of this? And because you can sort of say, well, that you could say is sort of equivalent to still break even. You could sort of reframe that as just the area under the curve if you normalized it for those two. So, maybe another way to look at it could be, say this is break even. You might have something like this, or hopefully you start to have higher cyclical peak earnings and maybe even have a situation where you don't lose money as your company grows. So that's sort of one way to do it. No, I think trailing 12 months isn't necessarily good for cyclical. You want to sometimes even do 5-year earnings or more, because you want to capture both parts of the cycle, the high earnings part and the low earnings part. So Caterpillar is extremely cyclical. Sarepta is sort of still under siege from some of the issues facing their drug. And you also have an issue with Sarepta because if the FDA is undergoing a large amount of change, well, their drugs technically did not meet the burden for some FDA approvals. So they got approved, of course, we know that. But, they were sort of granted a bit of a special approvals because of the very serious fatal disease, Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So possibly one of these things where does RFK take a second look and say, wait a second, we should have not approved this. Let's unapprove it. I don't know. I doubt it. I don't know who would want to deprive these kids of a medicine that could help them theoretically. Nevertheless, we're in uncharted territory. So I think the market does not like uncertainty regardless. So you could do, like I said, something called the cyclically adjusted PE ratio, or CAPE, which is surprisingly close to COPE. Yeah, if you haven't seen a bear market in a long time or a downturn, economic downturn in a long time, it's kind of hard to understand this, but you could have negative earnings for several years. So I'm trying to go back and see cash flow situation was for these guys, going backwards a bit. Yeah, you can see here that at some point, 2020 might have been maybe a cyclical low. You can see that Caterpillar had very, very low net earnings and lower cash flow to still had around 5 billion. So if you do the PE on the cyclical low, it's 30 times earnings. If you do it on the cyclical peak, it's 16 times earnings, which is why I was saying I'm not sure it's cheap. It's still around 20-ish times earnings, and the cyclical growth, you sort of have to look at it cycle over cycle, which, is very, we're very used to looking at earnings and revenue growth year over year. S&P recovering, only down 90 basis points now. Corcept flirting with 100. And here was like I said, a cyclically good year was 2019. Okay, wasn't that great. Revenue was up a lot, but earnings didn't follow. So only 6 billion free cash flow that year. So kind of looking like Caterpillar's last year or two of performance was a bit of an aberration. Just discussed Sarepta a second ago. It's a rough day for many drug companies as the FDA leadership is being shaken up a bit. Interesting. But they actually do keep the free cash flow. So usually with the interest rates, you get a mix of higher costs as well as higher earnings. But it does appear to correlate fairly well with interest rates. But yeah, it was free cash flow was $5 billion to $6 billion for a while, and then shot up to 10 to 11 billion. But historically, they've also had higher sales too, to be fair. I explain it maybe even a little better. So they've had both.